Unit 23 North, Western and Northern India. Objectives. After reading this unit, you will be able to comprehend political events in India from the close of the modern period to about 300 AD, the assimilation of diverse foreign elements into the mainstream of Indian society, the impact of Central Asian contacts in the field of trade and technology, religion, art, and the material remains of that period. Introduction. In block number 5, you read about the emergence and consolidation of the first empire in India, that of the Mauryas. You read in detail about the political expansion, the policy of the Dhamma as envisaged by Ashok, and finally the disintegration of the Mauryan Empire. You will recall that the final blow to the last of the Mauryan kings was rendered by the Pushyamitra Sangha in about 180 BC. The period, which commenced from about 200 BC, did not witness a large empire, but it is historically important as one in which there were widespread cultural contacts with Central Asia and the assimilation of foreign elements into the Indian society. This period witnessed the emergence of a number of political regions in North and Northwestern India. We will take up for our study some of the more prominent dynasties like the Sanghas, the Indo-Greeks, the Sakas, the Parthians and the Kushanas. We will also study the cultural contacts in various fields like trade, technology, art and religion. Sources. The political history of this period has to be pieced together by going through different types of sources. For some regions, the Puranic lists of dynasties and rulers become important sources of information. Inscription sources are also very important, and in some cases they supplement the information that we get from the Puranas. For the period immediately succeeding the overthrow of the Mauryas, scraps of information are found in such texts as the Gargi Samhita, the Mahabhashya of Patanjali, the Divya Vadan and the Malkagni Mitra of Kalidas, and the Harsha Charit of Ban. Evidence of Sangha history comes to us also from the inscriptions from Ayodhya, Vidish and Barhat. In the post-Mauryan period, political power did not remain in the hands of one family. Two main trends are seen in this period. One is that in the northwest there was a succession of rulers, first of Greek origin, then of Sak or Parthian origin, and next of Yuch-Chi origin. The second trend was that in the major part of the northern India, minor local ruling families came up in some areas. We also find Gan Sanghas distributed over a wide area in this period. For all these ruling families, the most important data are provided by the different types of coins minted by them. Coins with the names of rulers appearing on them thus become a major source now. But for the political history of this period, this source has to be supplemented by other sources. Cultural contacts with parts of Western Asia, but more with Central Asia, became regular in this period. So for the northwestern region, some other types of sources become important in this period. For example, in addition to coins, inscriptions written in Kharoshthi script are found in large numbers in this period in the region of Gandhar, and there are many Kharoshthi documents found in Central Asia as well. Similarly, there are stray references in Greek and Latin sources to regions of northwestern India and its rulers. In the Buddhist sources too, we find evidence regarding this period. For example, the Pali work Milind Panha, the question of the Milind, bears on the Yavan king Menander and on Buddhism in this period. The Chinese historical chronicles too contain references to contemporary events in Central Asia, Bactria and northwest India. For example, for information of the early history of the Yuchis or the Kushanas, we have to depend on the chronicles of early Han and later Han dynasties of China. The Sanghas. The Sanghas, a Brahmin family, possibly originally belonged to the region of Ujjain in Western India, where they worked as officials under the Mauryan kings. The founder of the Sangha dynasty was Pushyamitra Sangha, who, according to tradition, assassinated the last of the Maurya kings Brihadrath in 180 BC. This is corroborated by Ban, the Sanskrit prose writer and court poet of Harshvardhan of Kannauj. Pushyamitra appears to have been a keen supporter of Brahmanism and is known to have undertaken the performance of the Ashwamedh or horse sacrifice, a Vedic ritual symbolizing royal glory. In the Ayodhya inscription of Dhandev, Pushyamitra is credited with the performance of 2 horse sacrifices. This is indicative of Pushyamitra's hold over a large territory and also of Brahminical orthodoxy. Buddhist sources claim that he persecuted the Buddhist. The Buddhist tradition, as is preserved in the Divyavadan, depicts Pushyamitra as a destroyer of Buddhist monasteries and places of worship, particularly those constructed by Ashok. The Puranas assign a reign of 36 years to Pushyamitra, who was succeeded by his son Agnimitra. Very little information has been gathered about his rule. Muldev appears to be an important king with whom many have started the disintegration of the Sangha dynasty. Some historians have identified him as the king whose coins have been found at Ayodhya, and he may be regarded as a predecessor of Dhandev, described as Lord of Kosala in the Ayodhya inscription. Muldev has been regarded as the ruler of the independent principality of Kosala. The original Sanghas soon came to be confined only to Magda and the central Indian territories only. The last Sangha king was Devabhuti. He was the fourth ruler of the line, and if we believe Manbhatta, author of the Harshcharita, he fell victim to the conspiracy of his Brahman minister Vasudeva. Thus, the Sangha line came to an end around 775 BC, and although Vasudeva started a new line of rulers called Kanva, it lasted only 4 generations. The Indo-Greeks. From about 200 BC, a series of movements across the northwestern borders of the Indian subcontinent took place. Among the first to cross the Hindu Kush were the Greeks, who ruled Bactria south of the Oxus River in area covered by northern Afghanistan. Alexander's invasion in northwest India did not result in Greece and India coming together in any significant manner. The mingling of the two cultures came about in the 2nd century BC through the Greek kings of Bactria, who moved into northwest India and came to be called the Indo-Greeks. After the fall of the Achaemenid rule in Iran and the death of Alexander, Iran and the neighboring areas passed under the rule of the Alexander general. Gradually, the Greek rulers of Bactria, who were originally subordinate to the Seleucids and the Arsacid rulers of the Parthia, started asserting their autonomy. The Greek rulers faced a severe threat from the Scythian tribes. With the construction of the Chinese wall, the Scythians could not move towards China and in turn attacked the Greeks and Parthians. Pushed by the Scythian tribes, the Bactrian Greeks were forced to move towards India. These invasions had begun by the end of the Mauryan rule, and the successors of Ashok were not strong to resist them. From the first half of the 2nd century BC, the Indo-Greeks occupied a large part of the northwestern India. They also undertook occasional expeditions to the Ganga basin and other parts of the country, and they came as far as Panchal, Saket and Patliputra. One of the most famous Indo-Greek rulers was Menander or Milinda. During the period of his rule, the Indo-Greek power extended from the Swat Valley to Punjab as far as the Ravi River. He had his capital at Sakala, that is modern Sialkot in Punjab. Menander is best remembered for his conversion to Buddhism by Nagasen, a Buddhist monk and philosopher. Menander asked Nagasen many questions relating to Buddhism. These questions and Nagasen's answers were recorded in the form of a book known as Milind Panha, or the Questions of the Milind. The names of at least 30 Bactrian Greek rulers are known from a large number of coins. Menander's coins have been located as far as Kabul in the north and Mathura near Delhi. The history of the Indo-Greeks has been reconstructed mostly with the help of their coins bearing legends in Greek and later in Kharoshti and Brahmi as well. The evidence is sometimes confusing, as many kings had identical names and the coins of one ruler can be distinguished from those of the other only with great difficulty. Influence of Indo-Greek coinage, particularly silver coinage, which was excellent in workmanship, is found present in some coin series issued by some local rulers of the period. The nature of the coinage and the wide area in which it circulated suggest wide trade contacts. The Indo-Greeks are also important for their introduction of Hellenistic art features in northwestern India, which culminated in the Gandhara art style. The Sakas. The Sakas are referred to also as Scythians. In the Indian context, the sources sometimes mention the Scythians and Parthians together as Sakha Pahlava. Even from the names of the rulers, it is at times impossible to distinguish between the Saka and Pahlava. Even so, some families of rulers, which were associated with different regions of northwestern, north and western, have been distinguished as Sak. The Sakas poured into India through the Bolan Pass and may have first settled in a lower Indus region. There are coins and other sources associated with different branches of the Sakas. One branch is believed to have settled in Afghanistan. Another line of Sakas settled in Punjab with Taxila as the capital. There was another that ruled from Mathura. A fourth branch was that which established itself in western and central India, from where they continued their rule till about the 4th century AD. The Sakas were successful in destroying the Greek suzerainty over Bactria. They belonged to the nomad hordes of Central Asia. The Sakas were forced by another Central Asian tribe, the Yuchi, to leave their habitat on the Bactrian border and follow the Greeks into India. The Sakas gradually spread their supremacy over the northern and northwestern regions of India at the expense of the local Indo-Greek rulers. There are different types of sources for the reconstruction of the Sak in India. There are references to the people in Greek and Greco-Roman annals and in early Chinese accounts. Epigraphic and numismatic sources are also useful. The earliest Indian textual reference to the Sakas is perhaps to be found in the Mahabhashya. The Puranic and epic texts also mention the Sakas along with the Kambojas and the Yavanas in the extreme north. The first Sak king in India was Maus or Mog, who established Sak power in Gandhar. Maus is known from a series of coins and also from inscriptions, one of which contains a date. A dated copper plate inscription discovered in Takshila records the establishment of the relics of Buddha in a stupa during the period of Maus. Maus was succeeded by Aziz, who successfully attacked the last of the Greek kings in the northern India, Hippostratos. Although the Sakas established their rule in different parts of the country, it was only in western India that they could hold power for about 4 centuries. The most famous of the Saka ruler of western India was Rudradaman I, AD 130-152. His sway extended to the Sindh, Kutch, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Konkan and Narmada Valley, Malwa, Kathiawar and Western Deccan. His military achievements, his territories and his many personal qualities are highlighted in the famous Junagadh inscriptions written in 150 AD. This inscription also records in detail the repairs which his officials undertook of the damaged Mauryan Dam of Sudarshan Lake in the semi-arid zone of Kathiawar. This lake had been in use for irrigation purposes from the time of Mauryas. This lengthy inscription is the first major inscription to be written in Sanskrit. It is evident that Rudradaman patronized Sanskrit. After the death of Rudradaman, the Sakas of this area continued to rule despite occasional upsets until the end of the 4th century AD. The Sakas along with the Parthians introduced the satrap system of government, which was similar to that of Achaemenid and Seleucid system in Iran. Under this system, the kingdom was divided into provinces, each under a military governor called Mahkshatrap, that is great satrap. Governors with the lower status were called Kshatrapas, satraps. These governors issued their own inscriptions and also minted their own coins. This is indicative of a more independent status that was otherwise normal in an administrative setup. The Sak kings used such prestigious titles as King of Kings, Rajadhiraj, in addition to Great King, Maharaja, which they took over from the Greeks. The Parthians. We have already mentioned that there are references in the ancient Indian Sanskrit texts to the Sakas and the Parthians together as Saka Pahlavas. The rule of the Sakas and the Parthians was simultaneous in different pockets of northwestern and north India. The Parthians originated in Iran, and families of Parthian rulers may have moved into Indo-Iranian borderland and into northwestern India as a representative of Parthian rulers. The Sakas of Sistan were in close contact with the Parthians, and this is why we find among the Indian Sakas a mixture of original Scythian and Iranian Parthian elements. The most prominent Parthian king was Gondophares. His rule extended from Kabul to Punjab and possibly included certain Iranian areas of the Parthian Empire. Different stages of his coinage show his rise from subordinate to independent status. His name is believed to be associated with that of the Saint Thomas. There is a tradition which suggests that Saint Thomas travelled from Israel and came to the court of Gondophares. He came to India for the propagation of Christianity. There is a conspicuous scarcity of silver coins attributed to the Parthians. This might testify to the indifferent economic conditions of the Indo-Parthian Empire. It has been suggested by some scholars that it is not unlikely that the large number of silver coins that were issued in these regions by their predecessors, the Sakas and the Indo-Greeks, served the needs of the higher currency of the Parthian state in India. They might have been supplemented by coins of lesser value in which a small amount of precious metal was mixed up with comparatively cheap metal. Abdagases appears to have been the immediate successor of Gondophares. He was for some time the subordinate ruler under his uncle as suggested by joint issues of some coins. There are many coins which bear the names of Gondophares and his nephew Abdagases. The end of the Parthian rule in India is marked by several groups of small coins that were excavated at the Sirkap site of Takshila. The Parthians became assimilated into the Indian society in the course of time. The Kushanas. We now take up for our study another dynasty, the Kushanas, who succeeded the Parthians in the extreme northwest and spread themselves in successive stages in the regions of the northern India. The Kushanas are also referred to as Yuechis or Tocharyans. They belong to one of the 5 clans of the Yuchi tribe. They were a nomadic people originally from the steppes of North Central Asia, living in the vicinity of China. They were responsible for ousting the Sakas in Bactria and also the Parthians in the Gandhar region. The Kushanas first consolidated territories beyond the Indian border. Gradually, their authority in India expanded and came to extend to over lower Indus basin and most of the Gangetic plain down Varanasi. Although their empire lasted for about 1 century and a little more, their connection with India, their assimilation into Indian society, as well as their contribution to Indian culture left a deep impression on the Indian mind. Like the Sakas and Pahlavas, they too are mentioned in epic, Puranic and other literature. The Kushanas were particularly important as their empire became a meeting point of civilizations of the Mediterranean world, Western Asia, Central Asia, China and India. We have coins, inscriptions and other sources which provide evidence about 2 successive dynasties of the Kushanas. The first line was started by Kujula Kadphises, who is believed to have united the 5 tribes of the Yuchi and made successful inroads into India, establishing himself in Kabul and Kashmir. Kujula Kadphises minted different types of coins in copper, and one type of his coin has a Roman style made bust on it. Kujula Kadphises was succeeded by Vima Kadphises. Vima introduced a new phase of coinage in India. The practice of issuing gold coins by Indian rulers regularly started with him. He minted different types of gold coins which probably followed the Veth system of Roman gold coins, and this system continued with certain modifications till the Gupta period. Obviously, Vima's gold coins and copper coins indicate further intensification of contact with the Roman world of the time. The Kadphises rulers were succeeded by Kanishka I, who is the best known Kushan ruler in Indian history, particularly because of his association with Buddhism. The relationship between the first 2 kings, Kadphises and Kanishka, is shrouded in mystery, but he too was of Central Asian origin. He may not have been directly related to the first 2 kings. The Kushanas reached the zenith of their power under Kanishka I. His period is historically significant for general cultural development in northern India as well as for the intermingling of peoples of different geographical regions. The accession of Kanishka I to the throne has been variously dated with, somewhere between AD 78 to 144 and sometimes even later. An era with its initial date in AD 78 has popularly come to be regarded as the Sakya era, and this date seems to be most likely date for the Kanishka's accession. The Kushan Empire at its peak extended to Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh and to Varanasi in UP. Mathura appears to have been the second capital city, the first being at Purushapura near modern Peshawar. At Purushapura, Kanishka erected a monastery and a huge stupa. Kanishka I is an important figure in the history of Buddhism as being one of its great patrons. He sponsored the 4th Buddhist Council during his reign to discuss matters relating to Buddhist ideology, Buddhist theology and doctrine. The doctrines of the Mahayana form of Buddhism were finalized at the council. Missionary activities were given an impetus, and during his period, Buddhist monks started traveling to Central Asia and to China. Kanishka was also a patron of art and Sanskrit literature. The successors of Kanishka VIII continued to rule for over a century, but Kushan power gradually declined. Some of the rulers used very Indian names such as Vasudev. The Kushan Empire in Afghanistan and in the region west of the Indus was superseded in the mid 3rd century AD by the Sasanian power, which began in Iran. Peshawar and Takshila were lost to the Sasanians, and the Kushanas were reduced to the position of subordinates of these rulers. Local powers of North India. We have so far stressed the history of the prominent dynasties that ruled northern and northwestern India between 200 BC to 300 AD. It may be pointed out that simultaneously with major powers, there were many pockets of local dynasties and powers that ruled for varying lengths of time. We shall make a brief reference to them here. We have already referred to the Kanvas or the Kanvayanas. Their rule was founded by Vasudev after the Sanghas. Their power was short-lived and perhaps confined only to Magध. This line of rulers is mentioned in the Puranas. Some types of coins may have been minted by rulers of this family. Further west, in the upper Ganga-Yamuna basin, a number of local families came to power, and coins provide us with names of numerous rulers who minted them. Thus, numismatic evidence indicates that independent principalities came into existence at Ayodhya, Kausambi, Mathura, and Panchal almost simultaneously. The Punjab, which was perhaps a part of the Sangha territories during the reign of Pushyamitra, was lost to his successors. The Greeks occupied the area as far as Ravi, taking advantage of the weakness of the later Sanghas and on the strength of their economic prosperity. Some of the Kshatriya tribes living between the Ravi and the Yamuna asserted their autonomy. Some of them were the Audambaras, who occupied the land between the upper courses of Ravi and the Byas. Kunindas, who ruled the territory between the upper courses of the Byas and the Yamuna along the foothills of the Shivalik ranges. Trigards, who ruled the plain country between the river Ravi and Satluj. Yodhes, who were famous as warriors and ruled the territory between Satluj and Yamuna and parts of eastern Rajasthan. Arjunayas, Malwas and Sibis distributed in different parts of Rajasthan. Another region which came into prominence now was Kalinga in Odisha. You will recall that Kalinga was reconquered by Ashok from the local power, although we do not know who Ashok's contemporary local ruler was. However, in the post-modern period, we know of a local line of rulers named Mahameghavana. The Mahameghavanas were descendants from the ancient line of Chedis. Kharvel, the third ruler of this line, is known from his Hathigumpa inscription, which was engraved on the Udayagiri hills near Bhubaneswar. The inscription, which gives year-wise account of his reign till its 13th year, shows that Kharvel was a great king with military victories in North India, Western India, and South India to his credit. He also undertook many public works for his subjects, and as a practicing Jain, he excavated cave shelters for Jain monks on the Udayagiri hills. Significance of contacts between Central Asia and North India. The political domination over northern and northwestern parts of India by rulers coming from outside also implied coming in of new elements of culture, the assimilation of these elements into the mainstream of Indian society, and resultant impact of this contact on the development of trade, technology, art forms, etc. We shall examine the impact of Central Asian contacts under different subheadings. Trade and technology. The movement of foreigners into India established firmly the basis of regular trade contact between Central Asia and India. Trade contacts with Afghanistan were already existing, but now Central Asia also opened up to trade with new routes. One of these routes became famous as the Old Silk Route. Traders of different ethnic origins established trading stations and colonies from which the merchants operated. Examples of such places are Kashgarh, Yarkand, Kohtan, Miran, etc. The impetus to trade was given not only by Indian merchants but also by the Buddhist missionaries. One result of trade movement was that communication with China improved. The Kushanas controlled the Silk Route, which started from China and passed through Central Asia and Afghanistan and Western Asia. This route was a source of great income to the Kushanas. They levied tolls from the traders. India received a good deal of gold from the Altai mountains in Central Asia. Gold could also have been received from trade with the Roman Empire. It is significant that the Kushan rulers were the first to issue gold coins on a significant scale. You will read about trade routes and contacts in next unit number 24. New elements in the cavalry and techniques of war were introduced in India by the Sakas and the Kushanas. Horse riding gained popularity. They popularized the use of reins and saddles, which find appearance in the Buddhist sculptures of this period. The passion for horsemanship is evident from the numerous terracotta figures excavated from Begram in Afghanistan depicting equestrian scenes. The Central Asians also brought in cap, helmet, and boots, which were used by the warriors. This military technology became popular in northwestern India. Material remains. The material remains in the form of structures and pottery and coins give us a clear picture of the introduction of the new elements in the already existing techniques. The Sag Kushan phase is demonstrative of an advance in building activities. Excavations have revealed several layers of structures in northern India. They point to the use of burnt bricks for both the floor and the roof. Brick walls may also have been introduced during this period. The pottery of this period is redware, both plain and polished, with sometimes medium and sometimes fine fabric. The distinctive pots are sprinkled and spouted channels. They have resembled to the red fabric found in the same period of the Kushan layers of Central Asia. Some of the coins of the Kushanas borrowed many features of the Roman coins. The Saga coins in many cases were adaptations from those of the Indo-Greeks, though striking originalities are met with. Polity. The Sakas and the Kushanas put great emphasis on the notion of the divine origin of the kingship. The Kushana kings were referred to as sons of God. This title may have been borrowed from the Chinese. They also sometimes used an Indian version of the Roman title Caesar. This was used to stress royal authority. Similar ideas are found in the work of the Brahman lawgiver Manu. The Sakas had introduced the satrap system in the administrative setup. The entire empire was divided into satraps. Evidence of governing through subordinate rulers is available. The method of administering districts and other smaller units with the help of such officials as maridarchs was in vogue in the period of the Indo-Greek rulers. Epigraphic and numismatic data furnish us with the names of a large number of kshatraps and makshatraps. Some of the foreign rulers also introduced the practice of hereditary dual rule, which meant two kings holding higher and lower status ruling in the same kingdom at the same time. For example, father and son would rule simultaneously. The practice of military governorship was also introduced probably by the Greeks. These governors were known by the title of strategos. They were important for two reasons: for maintaining the power of the rulers over the indigenous people and for blocking invasions from the northwest. Religion and art forms. We have noted earlier in this unit that some of the kings like the Menander and Kanishka were converted to Buddhism. Some of the rulers were worshippers of the Vishnu, others of Shiva. We have an example of the Kushan ruler Vasudeva, whose name is one of the many names of the Krishna, who was worshipped as an incarnation of Vishnu. Some Kushana rulers worshipped both Shiva and Buddha, and the images of these two gods appeared on some of the Kushan coins. We can discern therefore that in the process of assimilation into Indian cultural patterns, the foreigners adapted to Indian ideas and forms of worship. The foreign rulers were also patrons of Indian art and literature. We have evidence that masons and other artisans coming from outside interacted with local workers. Indian craftsmen thus came into contact with those skilled in Greek and Roman craftsmanship. We have the example of Gandhar, in which images of Buddha were sculpted in a style which was typical of the synthesis of many cultural elements present in the region. The influence of Gandhar art spread to Mathura. Mathura also has given us many beautiful images of Buddha and other specimens of art of this period. Details of the art forms are discussed in the unit on art and architecture in this block. So now let us sum up. The Greeks, the Sakas, the Parthians and the Kushanas gradually merged into Indian society. They came to India as warriors, and therefore most of them were absorbed in the Indian society as the warrior class or the Kshatriyas. The problem of assimilating them by applying Brahminical norms to them was accomplished by Brahman lawgivers in the following manner. They were regarded as belonging to that category of Kshatriyas who had fallen from their duties. Large number of the foreigners were thus given a status in the Brahminical setup, without which their assimilation in the Indian social order would have been incomplete. We have in the course of this unit surveyed the main political trends in India from the post-modern period till about AD 300. In North India, political control was exercised mainly by groups who originated in Central Asia and moved across India's northwestern border. This opened up communications and trade routes between different countries and had a far-reaching impact on the cultural patterns of the period through movements of peoples and ideas.